To begin, we're going to be using the Anim starter pack. So this series is going to be using the UE4 skeleton just to kind of answer the question of can this be used with the UE4 skeleton. However, it's the exact same with the UE5 skeleton and some others, especially given that the example content is built around the UE5 skeleton. Then for the firearms, we're going to be using the FPS assault pack. So we're going to be using the rifle from that, as well as it does have at least 2 attachments to cover some key points. So what we're going to be doing is pretty much following the documentation for setting up the pawn as well as the animation blueprint. However, in this video, we're just going to go through, set up the pawn. Next video, we're going to set up the animation blueprint. I primarily want to keep these separated and in short mini videos. So let's begin. First thing we want to do is go into the Anim starter pack. I can't remember if this comes with a blueprint or not. Yes, it does. So we'll open it on up, and my guess is okay, not sure why it freaked out. Oh, because I haven't opened it, so it doesn't have any shaders. It's just going to complain about some input events, I guess. So is it only the crouch? So if we drag this guy out, go ahead and go to the details panel, search for possess, and hit play. Okay. So we can move around, and this is going to be our kind of our starting point. So let's go ahead and set up the mesh. So if we open up our mesh, go to the skeleton, and here's where we're going to need a couple of virtual bones as well as a socket for the camera. Now, if you're using something like ALS that doesn't use a actual camera component, because I believe it has an actor that represents the camera, you're going to be doing the exact same setup process. You're just going to be putting the socket where the camera is supposed to go. So starting up, we need 3 virtual bones. This one is optional, but only if you want firearm collision. So we're going to set up IK Handgun Parent. And what this is going to be is this is going to be positioned where the head bone is with the camera offset applied. So what I mean by that is let's go ahead and go to our head. We're going to right click, add a socket, and I'm going to call it S_camera. And this is what I'm going to position. So for example, if I put it right here, IK Handgun Parent at the end, once it's set up, is going to be right here where this camera socket is. So that's what allows us to procedurally bring the firearm, our sight, like our aiming point, to the camera. So it's dead centered. So we're going to put ours, I guess that's about eye level, and just a tad in front of the mesh. So go ahead and save that. Come back over here to our character. We're going to drag the camera onto the mesh and set the socket to be camera socket and clear out its transform. So right now it's looking straight up. So we need to resolve that. So we need to rotate it on the x-axis and then down on the pitch. So we're going to rotate by 90 degrees, and then we need to bring it straight down. So right now it's going to be pointing straight up like so, but it's in the proper rotation, or yaw, or that'd be roll, I don't know. But we're going to make it point forwards, so we're going to bring it down by 90, and now it's positioning straight out in front, like so. Next up, we need some virtual bones. So we're going to start with IK Handgun Parent. So we want to add a virtual bone from the head and make it, we're going to do it on the head, and the target's going to be the head. Then we can just copy the name like so. So right click, add virtual bone, target's going to be the head, and we'll name it IK Handgun Parent. Likewise, we have IK Handgun ADS, which is going to be the exact same thing. So add a virtual bone, it's going on the head, and name it IK Handgun ADS. And it is a child of IK Handgun Parent. So as IK Handgun Parent moves, IK Handgun ADS moves with it. Lastly, we have IK Handgun. Now this one's going to have the target of IK Handgun. So we're going to right click on the parent again, because again, it is a child of it. And we want to put this on IK Handgun, like so, and just name it IK Handgun. Lastly, we want our firearm collision bone, so we're going to go ahead and set that up. Now this one's very simple. You can put it anywhere on spine 1 and down. It can go basically anywhere from here to here. You just got to figure out which one. I'm just going to put mine in spine 1 because that's less likely to really have any influence on anything else. And I'm going to also make the target the same bone. So firearm collision and save. So we already did the camera socket. Now we want to set up our blend mask. So we're going to hit the drop down here, blend profiles. We're going to add a blend mask. I'm going to call this one IK Handgun. And basically the goal behind this is to make it so IK Handgun and everything from the spine and down have a separate blend weight. So that way we can separate the upper and the lower body using this. So we're going to go ahead and set IK Handgun, IK Hand Root. Give that a value of 1. And it really doesn't matter if you do this on the root or if it's IK Handgun, just as long as it's in here. And then we're going to right click and recursively set blend scales to 1. And that's going to take and add 1 to all of its children. Likewise, with spine 01, we're going to set its value to 1 and recursively set blend scales to 1 again. So now you can see all the children have a value of 1. Now what's important is if you make the blend mask first, you're going to need to manually, after you add the virtual bones, assuming you added them after the blend mask was set up, you're going to need to manually set them to 1 as well, or you can still just recursively set the children to 1. The other thing to take note of is after you've made changes or added a blend mask and such, and you have a animation blueprint that's already using it, you need to make sure to compile that animation blueprint, because otherwise you're just going to have basically, it's not going to take those changes into account, so it's not going to have any effect. All right, lastly, let's go ahead and add our shooter pawn component. So we're going to search for shooter pawn. We're going to add our shooter pawn component. And I'm actually going to delete the camera boom and rename our camera from player camera to just camera. So selecting our shooter pawn component, we need to make sure that these line up. So first things first, we're going to just ignore this. We need to make sure our character mesh name, so we're using one mesh, so this will be enabled. And since this is enabled, it only needs to find one of these. So it doesn't matter which. So in this case, the default is character mesh 0. So if we look here, in parentheses, it shows character mesh 0. That is the default for the character class. You do not want to use mesh. You want to use what is in parentheses. If there are no parentheses, such as if you're using the pawn class with something like GMC, then you would want to use basically mesh. So pretend this section here didn't exist. It would just be mesh. So we have that set up. Next up is going to be our camera component name. Just going to leave it as camera. And then we have our camera attached socket. So that's going to be the socket our camera is attached to, which is S_camera. And that is it by default. So we're going to go ahead, compile and save. And for now, we are done. Next up, we can go ahead and start working on the animation blueprint.